We are live, so we're going to get right to it, Will Marre, because we only have so much time with you today, and I appreciate you coming in. You're the one who came to me and said, women should be leaders, or we need more women leaders.
Absolutely, yes.
And your website, a millionsmartwomen.com, which was an important little filter to put in there, right? Because you're not just, hey, every woman's the right woman.
Right.
You put a filter in there, smart women. Can I first ask you about your shirt? Because you're always wearing an interesting shirt when you come in here, and I appreciate that. Yes and no. What is it?
Cano. So the way it works is this. When I work with women, they've been socialized for hundreds of thousands of years, and their brain design is designed to help others achieve their goals in a leadership sense. So it's not necessarily to have a goal, but their role, so their subconscious default position is to help other people achieve their goals. So you can find women working in all kinds of businesses whose goals they actually don't even care about or don't even like. So the part of the programming that we do, part of the education we do, is try to help women get really clear on what are their goals. So one of the ways that they have a difficult time parsing is the difference between the path to happiness and the path to success, because you really need to help people avoid the disappointment of success. Now, the disappointment of success is this: if you're successful at something you don't value, it doesn't really make you happy. And getting more of what you don't value doesn't make you happy. It's very important to women who think about these kinds of things all the time. So the path to happiness is knowing what to say yes to. The path to success is knowing what to say no to. So that's what we teach. And they really like it. It makes it very clear. We got two things going on. And the clearer they get about what their leadership mission is, which is what I'm all about.
Will, do you think women should rule the world?
Well, I think that women should rule the world in the sense only that the ways that a woman thinks about the future, the way that a woman thinks about community, the way the woman thinks about sustainability, and I don't mean sustainability just in an ecological sense, but I mean sustainability in a cultural sense, in a sense, an economic sense.
Practical sense.
Yeah, in all those sense. I call it sustainable abundance. Now, what's one thing we could all be for? A sustainable abundance. That's a future that works for everyone, not just for a few people, but for everyone. But it's an abundant future, not a future of shared scarcity, but a future of true abundance. But abundance of things that make us happy, not only wealthy, but happy. So women bring something very different than men do. So if you think of what do men bring to leadership? Well, if you consider we've had recorded history for about 5,000 years. And during those 5,000 years, there's been a major war 9 out of 10 years. And it's primarily due to alpha male thinking, which is about dominance, status, control, and wealth. So if those are the major drivers of the people who are in control of the world, and now you've escalated their power through technology, weapons of mass destruction, you've increased complexity by having 7.5 billion people on the earth, you've got a very different problem than you had like 50, 60 years ago, where alpha maleness could kind of work. Now it can't work. So we need women to rule the world, not exclusively, not without men, but we need men to understand the strengths of women, and they need to, what I call gender synergize or gender synergy. They need to work together to create a world that we all want to live in.
Okay, all right. So, and there are now some world leaders, female world leaders, whereas I don't know how many years we could go back where there weren't any, but there are now. We got as close as we've ever come to having a female president in the United States. So do you see it going in that direction a little bit?
Yeah, but slowly. And the problem is that our societal structures and our business, I work a lot in large businesses, they all reward people, whether men or women, who have alpha qualities. So often women who achieve the highest level of leadership today are alpha females. In other words, we call them men in skirts. So if you think of PwC they asked 1,500 executives from around the world who the 50 most, or excuse me, the leaders they most admired over the last 50 years, or the last 100 years, because Winston Churchill was the most admired male leader. but Margaret Thatcher was the most admired female leader. So these are all male leaders who are responding to this, and Margaret Thatcher is as close to a man in a skirt as you could find. Winston Churchill was sort of reincarnated as a woman.
A man in a skirt.
I did hear that. I did hear that.
It's a visual that I just can't.
Men in
Well,
skirts. Okay.
So we have to change the culture of what we're looking for.
You say we need more feminine leadership then, is that what you're saying,
Exactly.
versus male-female?
Right, but the strong feminine, the Athena feminine.
Because, and I thought about you as I was reading Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, which he revised, and of course, authors do that now. They do a revised edition, and for a lot of reasons. But and I noticed in there, and that book is all about ego and the way that the ego tricks you, and how it works, and how it functions, and how it surfaces. And one of the things I noticed, I was just reading this 2 nights ago. He said something about how ego, women are not as susceptible to allowing ego to take over their thoughts and therefore their actions as men are. And he said something very similar to something you said about how it would be helpful to have more women in positions of power. Is that what you're referring to when you say alpha characteristics? Does it have to do with
No,
that?
yeah. What I'm saying is that there are so the University of Wisconsin at Madison did this research about what they call the inner life of men and the inner life of women. So the inner life of men, how they evaluate opportunities, is what will that opportunity do for my wealth, power, status, and opportunities for sex. Those are the 4 things that men think of. And women are thinking about what is going on where I can be of help, of service, create community value. So one of the things I often talk about is the whole microcredit industry, which is around the world, which gives little bits of money to people to start businesses and develop in part of the developing world. So a $200 loan to start, let's say, a basket business that you're starting to sell. There's a 98% repayment rate when you loan money to women. They don't even loan money to males because males tend to spend the actual loan money on either gambling, prostitution, or liquor because of low impulse control. Now the reason that the men have low impulse control is because we're testosterone-driven creatures. So if you play that out on a big scale, whether it's a corporation or a country, do you really want that kind of testosterone-driven thinking? Do you really want that filter of evaluating what's going on in the world to drive your decisions? So the answer is probably not. What we find, what do women do? They take those proceeds, they create a successful business, and they promote it within the community. That is, they promote they get more women involved. They try to build up a community of entrepreneurs. And then what do? They get better schools. They get clean water. They're building the community. So they're community builders. So, of course, not every woman is like this, and not every man is a jerk. I'm not saying that at all. And
that's what I was getting from it. I kind of looking myself in the mirror here, just sort of going through my life and trying to figure.
It's very self-reflective of
I
it.
was trying to.
What I hear Will saying, though, is I think that, and hopefully this is something in self-reflection, just looking at the simple relationship between myself and my husband. He has very excellent innate abilities to take care of certain parts of our family. But when it comes to the big picture, when it comes to fitting everything in the schedule, yes, he works hard and he brings home the bacon and does these things. But when it comes to, school plus extracurricular activities for our children, plus, how are we going to make sure there's food in the fridge, and, there's a wedding coming up this month. It's the big picture organization and that multitasking part of my brain, which I feel as a woman is essential to many parts, and I bring that to my business. I'm able to incorporate how do I help my clients, and how can we network with other agents, and how can we, help those people with their businesses, and in turn they're helping me with my business. So it's bringing together a lot of different factors.
That's what I was going to say. They're interesting. We're talking about these concepts, and just to give it another name, it's masculine qualities and feminine qualities, which we all have inside of us, both masculine and feminine. But men are geared toward being more masculine, being the type A of saying, go out and get it, make it happen, being very kind of assertive. Women are more kind of the feminine qualities, and women in our society get that, are more receptive. But it's even more important. I just want to say this. There is research. There's actually scientific data showing why this happens. So there's 2 stress responses we have. One is fight or flight. We're all familiar with, right? Somebody comes at us, we get either scared and run away, or we want to attack them. That's very masculine oriented. Very men are really kind of geared towards that. Women do it too, absolutely. But you know, the stress response was studied from 1917 when it was first discovered all the way until the 1990s. It was just men that they researched to find this stress response. They did not look at women at all. Finally, when enough women were elected to Congress in the 1990s, they said, hey, we need to put some money in the NIH to study women, their physiology, and their entire biology. And they found, lo and behold, there's an entirely different stress response that women show that men do not and don't lend to. It's called tend and befriend. And to make it really simple, there's a chemical called oxytocin that women have. We all have it, men and women. Women get pregnant, when they're delivering, when they're breastfeeding, the oxytocin gets released. But it's a feel-good chemical. And testosterone, as you were saying, biologically blocks oxytocin. Estrogen actually enhances oxytocin. So what's tend and befriend? Tend and befriend is going culturally thousands of years ago. We're all fighting. Men are out there fighting. They're fight or flight. You know, women are like, okay, somebody that's come after our tribes. They're going to kill our children. So we have to tend all of our children. We have to gather them together, work together. We have to get our resource, our food together, and befriend all the other women to make a strong stance against anything that comes towards us. So it really is this relational way of connecting, of saying, how can we get other people involved, other women? The more women that connect, even women now, if you call up your woman friend, hey, want to talk, I'm really going through this, your oxytocin goes up, their oxytocin goes up, and you connect emotionally and biologically.
Absolutely.
And it is about
We've all seen two women get together, and we've watched that happen. That's something that's all. We've all definitely seen that. And by the way, I should go ahead and now it's time for introductions now that everyone's had a chance to speak. So Dr. Tahir Badi is here, psychiatry professor at the University of California, San Diego.
Absolutely.
UCSD. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Give us the medical and sort of the academic side, and also we'll probably talk spiritually as well.
I love that.
Melissa Sophia, who brought Will Marre to us, is a successful business owner here in San Diego, successful real estate agent, real estate brokerage that you own, the Avenue Home Collective. And then Will, you're a champion for women. So this is kind of your thing. This is your big thing that you're doing now because you had your career, right? This is your new purpose.
Well, it's really, let me explain it this way. I still do corporate transformation work, so I've been doing cultural transformation work for 25 years. And the reasons that corporations want to transform their culture is because today, you can only be successful if you are really focused on innovations that customers value. So that sounds really simple, but for the last 30 years, large corporations have been primarily focused on efficiency, doing more with less, cutting their workforces and making more money through automation and things of that nature. But that's all been played out. You can't, there's no growth in that. So the growth comes from coming up with new innovations that people value. Turns out that the empathy of women, I call it strategic empathy, is a lot better at determining what those things are and the investments that companies need to make. So I didn't come to this because I woke up one morning and I happen to have 7 granddaughters. But I didn't wake up with that. I'd say we're going to need to create a better world for them. I arrived at this because I helped a local company, Cricket Communications, sort of revolutionize its whole approach to their customer base because they brought a woman in to head their marketing team, and I helped that woman's voice get very loud in the organization. So, and it triggered all this work I'd done for all these years with women executives and how they were different. So what I do now is I train women to have more impact in leadership, and I inspire men to empower them. In other words, give them a bigger voice in the organization. And I want to say something that's really positive. Most organizations, particularly technology organizations, of which and science, are very biased against women implicitly. Invisible, it's invisible bias. So men, especially very analytical men, like to work with other very analytical men because they don't want to deal with a lot of questions. They want to get into answers. They want to get to problem solving right away. So if you're a woman in a tech company and somebody gives you an assignment and you say, I've got a few questions, they go, oh my gosh. Really? I get that at home. You got questions too? I just want to work with Carl because he won't have any questions and we get started on this damn thing. So that happens all the time. So over time, men get promoted faster than women because the other thing men don't want to do is give women feedback. They'll give men feedback because men are tough and they'll take it. But if I give women feedback, it's just going to open Pandora's box. I'm going to have to deal with all these emotions. I don't want to deal with it. So in technology, it's called high IQ, low EQ, meaning low emotional intelligence because you have a lot of emotionally or socially awkward people. It's a whole other story. But
in the tech industry.
Absolutely. So it's very extreme there. So women feel unheard and undervalued in those companies, so they tend to leave after 5 years. There's a problem. That's why I get called up. So just very recently, I was working with a large tech company. We all know their name. It's run by 6 male people with, their CEO and all the other C people.
Does the name of the company begin with a Q?
No, we're not going to talk about that. But
Very large San Diego company.
But this is so I did a focus groups and I found out how women feel, what behaviors cause them to feel not valued. And it's a very specific behaviors, like being talked over, being interrupted, things of that nature, not giving credit for something you've done, somebody else taking credit, a male taking credit for it, and another male endorsing that. So all these come that you just call bad behavior. Your mother should have taught you not to interrupt women, right? So when we really surface the specific behaviors, and then what the loss was in terms of talent and engagement, which is a big number financially because you can figure it out. They're like, let's fix this. So we had 15 ways to remediate some of these problems, and actually training people to behave differently. Simple things like when you start a meeting, ask a woman first, ask everybody in the room the opinion on every big question. So conduct meetings more in a round robin. These are simple behavioral changes. And I've trained the most hard power, crusty, women-hating men in the world just to do these behaviors, and the behaviors create the change. So here you have 6 men. They're all gray-haired boomer age men. And they're saying, let's do this. We didn't know we're doing this.
That's great.
So this isn't something that lots of men don't want to do. It's not like they're rejecting to have women in senior leadership. It's more that they just don't know how to integrate them, and they don't know how to listen to them. And they don't know how to encourage women to really say what they think ought to be done or be fierce advocates for customers. So it's really exciting because there's a lot of people asking for this. And my approach is a little bit of mindset, what's happening, and a lot of skill set. So how do you have a conversation with a woman where she's not going to kill me with questions and I'm going to go into a coma? So for instance, I tell women, if you have a set of questions, make it a set of questions. Tell them it's a checklist. Suddenly it's a goal, and they'll want to answer the questions. But if you just start open-ended, it's like having a honey-do list that never ends. You just don't want that at work. You get that on the weekends at home. You don't want that at work. So
I think this is so important that he's talking about the cultural change, because I see all across the board, millennials, as we'll somehow always come back to when we're discussing things. Culture in a company nowadays is becoming almost more important than salary even. People are starting to understand that their happiness many times depends on the culture of a company. So it's wonderful to hear that more and more local companies, and hopefully, this just continues to grow, are looking at the actual culture of their business and seeing how they need to make these changes within their leadership so that so their employees stay and they're happy and their companies become successful.
Well, I just want to say, I have to go. So
I know.
I just want
you to get it all.
I just want to finish, and thank you for letting me drone on.
No,
And I appreciate it, Doctor. He's smarter than I am. He knows more than I do, and he talks faster, so you'll get that. But it's inevitable because the cultures that millennials want to work in are the same cultures that women want to work in, and so the world's going to change within 20 years because people my age are going to die. And the dominant vibe, that's a technical term, the dominant vibe of the millennials and the parts of the Y generation are going to, Generation X isn't going to play a big role in the culture of either the world or certainly business. The millennial, because there's so many, 125 million of them, and they're ready to, they want to take over. They are not afraid to give me the steering wheel, I want to steer. And in 20 years, this world is going to be led by a different way of thinking. So the question is, can you make your company thrive as we change? And you're going to have to change if you're going to have your company thrive, and that's going to be good for everybody. So yes, I think women have a big part in ruling the world.
In summary, if you're Generation X, you don't factor in. You're not, you're nowhere in there. Will, thank you so much for your time. I know you got to run. Brad will demic you on the way out.
Great,
I know you have to take off. No
And
worries. We're going to continue the discussion.
Universal namaste.
Yes,
Namaste.
yes. We're going to continue the discussion with Melissa and Tahir. So, Tahir, I wanted to give Will a chance to get his piece in. I know you know a lot about the research that's been done in this space, scientific research, and then of course, obviously the tendencies that exist as you've been meeting with patients for years, you know, and all the years that you had studying to learn about this stuff. What is it that, if I were to ask you, let's say Will wasn't here, and I was just to ask you this question about, you know, the role of women in leadership and how important that might be in a potential transition for the world, what would you say?
Yeah, you know, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying, everything that Will had said. I think women being in position of power, position of leadership, not just in politics, but in business, in medicine, in whatever field you're looking at, I absolutely think it needs to be done. But I want to go back to an important point, is that it can't be having women being masculine. Right? Because there's a movement in our culture that the masculine traits were really acknowledged. The 50s, 60s, 70s, even going back to the 1900s, women weren't even allowed to vote with the whole suffrage movement. So women had to have decades of building their masculine power, of saying we need to be more masculine because it's the only way we're going to get heard, it's the only way we're going to get seen, and it led to the 60s and 70s where the whole women's lib movement, which I think is fantastic. So women had to gain their masculine power and those traits to say we need to be in position of power, we got to act like the guys because that's what gets accepted. Right. But what's happened is they can't stay, I think it was what Will was saying and I agree with, they can't stay at that place. Because what happens is that women naturally have these amazing feminine qualities of connection, of this relational kind of wellness, of relational, you know, these complex interrelated connections of working together, right? Of having this, how can we maximize this for everybody? But if they don't go back to the feminine parts of those feminine qualities they contain, they're going to stay masculine and go back to that, you know, it's just us and who can we destroy on the way up to whatever we need to get to. So it's harder for men to move to that feminine place, as Will was saying. You can't, it's hard for guys to say, I'm listening to your thing, tell me the whole thing, because they get in that you know, masculine role. But women need to kind of integrate the two and say, hey, they have a level of power, their feminine power, integrated with their masculine power they've cultivated, that really is going to allow them to step into those places of power, those positions of power, I think in really beautiful ways. And men can't do that. We just don't have the skill set to step into our feminine power. I mean, we can practice that, but it's a lot harder to be in those qualities as, you know, that masculine energy has been so kind of, you know, dominant in our lives.
I think if you want to take what you're seeing in your everyday life and apply it to what we're saying on a macro level, think about between guys out there, think about between you and your wife, who schedules all of the neighborhood get-togethers with the other families? You know, who goes to buy the Hallmark cards when it's someone's birthday? You know,
who makes life happen?
I mean,
Who makes your whole life happen?
there's certain things when you say about socialization and sort of the understandingness.
Right.
Guys can live in a cave, no problem.
Yeah.
Like guys could go weeks without talking to anyone.
Yeah.
Even guys, you know, buddies, bros, can like go like 2 weeks, 2 months.
Right.
I have friends of mine I haven't talked to for a year. We can pick up the phone and we talk, and we're right back where we were.
Right.
But you know, I think when we talk about the organization, the connectedness of people, I think women do have a huge advantage there.
Absolutely.
It seems to be something that's innate, that's across the board with women, and I think that is a role that could be really beneficial to us from a macro perspective. I don't think, I'm not trying to get political, but I would say Hillary Clinton is one of those, as Will was saying, a woman or a man in a skirt. You know, it's like she had to get there doing this traditional masculine things, you know, smash her way up to the top. And that's not necessarily what we're talking about. It's not just a woman, like even Will's movement, a million smart women.
Right.
We're talking about the right type of qualities that men may not be able to have, but that a woman could.
You know, there's a great, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I think it's important for women to hear, as you're saying, and I appreciate, you know, this point of view coming from you both, and, you know, of course from Will, but, you know, that we are acknowledged that we are allowed to have this feminine power and that we are empowered to hold that feminine power because, you know, as a woman and as a woman in business, I think that our tendency is culturally to feel like we need to tone down our feminine nature and to, like you said, you know, increase our masculine side of the power. I think that it's important as a society and a culture that we acknowledge that women need to be empowered to expose that side of ourselves, and you know that it can help culture as a whole.
Yeah, well, and then men need to create a safe space for that.
Sure.
Right? And this is what we were talking about relationships before, that men need to create a safe space in relationship, but it's all relationships. Because if we're too masculine and we can't be somewhat saying, can we support women to step into those roles and say, it's a win-win. You know, women are looking for win-win. Men are looking for, I need to win, you need to lose. Again, that masculine, feminine. You know, they're great theories. It's a mechanistic theory and a relational theory. And this is in education, it's in medicine, it's in business, it's in politics. And mechanistic is really what's ruled our culture of, you have something, you take it apart, you know, it's very mechanical, you can make it work. And relational is, well, what are the complex interactions of this and how does it really work? And again, if we look at it, women are much more relational, men are more mechanistic. And relational theory in any field, there's a great book called Relational Reality that's showing in all these different fields, relational starting to take over, and that is more inherent that women are naturally fall into that relational pattern. It's natural for them. So honoring that women have claimed their masculine, have used it, have shown they have that power, but now men need to say, okay, we want to see the part that we struggle with. Show us that relational way of connecting, of building, of seeing what you can do. And you know, I truly think women should be in positions of power because they can do it in a much better, much different way. It's biological. And as Will was saying, you know, it's showing that you make more money, you're more successful, and people are all doing it together. It's like, let's do it as a culture versus I need to succeed and you need to fail.
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
And that's a tough thing to do, but I think we're ripe for it.
Absolutely.
From a an evolutionary standpoint, we're past the period of time in which human beings pretty much just conquered whatever they could kill.
Right.
And you know, and those masculine traits were
Yeah,
superior.
we needed them. We needed them back then, right?
You had to have it,
Right.
You know, because you go back just even a couple hundred years, there were no radars.
Yeah.
There were no, you didn't know if someone was coming. You're sitting there in your kingdom. I mean, somebody could be coming any second.
Right. You better be
There's
ready.
no missile defense
No,
system.
there's nothing. Like you had to be ready every second because someone was gonna come. You just didn't know when. So I mean, like that's a totally different mindset. Whereas now it's like, okay, everyone can see everyone.
We could see it, yeah.
Everyone can see
Yeah.
everyone. So because of that, it's more about having the right person to make the decisions than it is about having the person to actually go out and throw the punch.
Yeah.
But the trouble is that, and this is where we're going to have a hard time with the evolution, is that it still takes that, feisty, super alpha characteristics to get to the top of really just about anywhere.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that's really tough. So what is going to have to happen in order for this to play itself out is it's going to take someone who can get there and then settle in to their true self. And
Yeah.
that is going to be a very special person.
Yeah, I agree. Or people, special
Or
people.
people.
And
right?
this is what I love about Will's movement, the Million Smart Women, because I think part of it is the nature of us networking and the nature of us, showing that we need to be empowered as a society, and we all need to decide as a society to give women more of a chance to rule and to, get into positions of power. I think that it's very easy for everyone to say, yeah, this is a great idea. Sure, I support women. But when it comes down to the practice of it, that's the tough part. What people do in their voting booths, what people do, on a personal level, face to face. I mean, there's still a lot of, sexism that women face day to day.
Sure.
So that's the tough part. I know that we're ripe for it, and I totally agree. I feel like the millennial generation, it almost isn't even a question. Are men and women equal? Of course they are, is the answer that I hear over and over again from that generation. And I hope that, my hopes are high that it continues as, they do come into power. But what do we do for now?
Yeah. So to me it goes back, I say this every time, I'm sure Derek's going to make fun of it, which is great, is I'm going to blame the men, right? I'm still going to put the responsibility back on the men, right? is that I think as men, we have to take an active role in this.
Yes.
Is that we have to support the women who trying to find that special person, that
Men,
special
it's up
people.
to you.
Right? It's like, I still think I think this is a dialogue, and I love that Will's doing this, is that more men can be saying this, is we want this change. We want to support this change as well, and not be resistant to it as if we're being threatened, because the fight or flight. Right? It's like, we don't want that woman in charge. We don't want that woman in
Sure.
charge because it's going to take away from I'm saying, you know what? If we can hear this message we're all talking about, it will benefit the men. It'll benefit the men if we allow women to kind of take the lead. I guarantee you it's much more of a win-win just by, again, what the data shows, just what you see happening in society. It's much more of a win-win if we allow that space for a woman to be kind of the alpha, woman, alpha male, to get there and then say, okay, now let me show you all the abilities that I have. And men's like, okay, yeah, this is good. I'd love it if they do it from the beginning, though, right? If they
Right.
allow a woman to be that way and say, we support you, and be your integrated self. You can be
That's
both
probably
men.
not the first step, though.
It's not, you're right. But
That's
that would,
gonna we can get to that, maybe.
that would be great,
But
right?
I think in order to get there, there's got to be some
I
sort
do.
of middle ground.
Sure.
and it's going to take that first woman who gets there, however she needs to, and then she can settle in,
Yeah.
you know, or multiple. But what you didn't see to hear is when Will was on last time and all the razzing he was giving me. So, because you know, I told him, you know, some of the things. Well, you know, I tend to hire women.
Oh, that's great.
Which is just historically speaking, you know, what I have found. And well, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something. He's like, "Well, how much do you pay?" Or you, know, you just hire women because you can pay them less. Or something is what he said.
Oh, it had to do with raises.
Yeah,
Women don't ask for
raises.
raises as much.
Women don't ask for raises as much.
Right.
No, that's right. That's been my personal experience. Women don't ask for raises as much. And he's like, "Oh, maybe that's why you hire."
That is right. That's
And
exactly
so that's what happened.
No, listen, you're a huge advocate for women. I support. I love it that you have a business you've created and realize the power that women bring into your business, right? Much different than what, I mean, I honor the skill set that men have, but we're kind of used our limit of our skill set, you know, and unless we can really come in with these feminine traits and feminine abilities hard for men, we need to maximize, you know, what women can do. So I love that you do that. I really honor
And
that.
do you think that part of that is because you have, I mean, you've been such an advocate for real estate and that industry, and I think that you probably, I can assume, you've seen a lot of very powerful women as you have, you know, come up in your career. And, you know, I think real estate is one of those really great industries where, you know, longer than in other industries, people have been able to look at women as an excellent choice as a realtor. And part of that is because of that multitasking, networking, able to look at the big picture quality that we do have as women. You know,
I think it's more of the aesthetic quality. I think it's more of the true feminine qualities, right? I think even a super, like, alpha male masculine guy will listen to you if you say these cabinets are in, or you know what I mean, or like
Sure.
the layout of this house is good for
Right.
resale,
Right.
or you know, things that are traditionally seen as more feminine, where a guy's like, I don't care, paint it whatever you want, you know what I mean, it doesn't make any difference to me. I think even the most masculine guy would listen to you on that. So I think in
Sure.
real estate, that's why you've seen that be something that, you know, it's like, okay, well, I now value your feminine characteristics.
as long as you can prove that you are able to, you know, work the mechanical side, know the numbers as well, you know, I do trust your opinion because of, yeah, I love that. But, you know, and that's a nod to, you know, our feminine power as well.
Because the other thing, if you give them that advice and the men take it, later on the house is going to be, if you want to resell it, you want to do
Sure.
something, it looks better aesthetically, it'll be worth more. So again, it benefits everyone financially.
Yeah.
And
you know?
that's part of what I think, you know, why Will's finding success as a corporate, you know, consultant, because, you know, they're realizing, hey, you know, putting women and empowering women and helping, you know, figure out how to make this work inside of our company is going to turn into dollar bills.
Yeah.
So if more people can figure that out,
Yeah.
you know, then we maybe have a
And there's
chance.
one last thing I do want to say is what we're saying, these 6 gentlemen on top of the company, they're making these changes, but you know, there also have to be internal changes in these 6 men and these other men, right? Is we can say we're going to bring these external changes and have these women do this, but again, then the men have to kind of make a little leap and a little bit of, you know, kind of soul searching, kind of going more kind of the spiritual kind of side of it, saying, okay, can I hold this a different space as I see these women stepping these roles? That's what I was saying, men have to take responsibility. Is that I love it that we're creating a space for women, but it won't work if men are still fighting the system. As you're saying, it's going to take a while. So as part of that, it takes a couple of steps to get there. Can men take responsibility to say, okay, I need to be open to this because there's data showing it. It shows I'm going to make more money. It shows it's going to be more successful. It shows we're all going to be working together. It's a win-win. Why not? It's not just stuff we're just making up. There's actually raw data showing this is going to help everybody, including the men. So it's making that internal shift as well.
And I think there are a lot of men out there that have a problem with that internal shift because, you know, you can see with all of our marches, with all of the, you know, standing up for laws that benefit women as well as men.
Sure.
You know, there's so much still, like, anger.
Yeah, well, it's been, you know, that, I mean, if you think about when did women get the right to, like 100 years, less than 100 years
This is
ago?
crazy.
early 1900s.
I mean, we're talking about,
crazy.
this is a very fast change that's being made.
Sure.
Because you go even back to the 1950s or, you know, 60s, so we don't have to go back 100 years. We could go back much less than that, and you see, you know, dramatic changes are taking place, and this is one of them for sure. And I think a takeaway could be, a really good takeaway could be, if you have, you know, let's say a female that you are working with at work, or that you are maybe even in charge of, or maybe that is even your boss. Can you take a moment to look at the situation a little differently than you have been?
Right.
Can you take that moment and say, you know, have I been treating this situation with an open mind?
Right.
And maybe you'll find one little thing, one little tiny adjustment that you can make, especially I think if you have female employees, and I do have a lot of experience with that. But my philosophy in management has always been very laissez-faire. I don't micromanage people. I encourage people to bring their own creativity, male or female.
Right.
But I've personally seen, women who've worked for me do amazing things. Angela, for example, producing Winless Listing. Completely entrusted her with
She's awesome.
an insane project.
Wow.
Completely insane project. Totally entrusted her. Let her go about it her own way, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. So, and I've got other examples too. This is a very recent one.
That's you creating the space for a woman to step into her full power and creativity, her masculine feminine balance, and really showing up that way. And that is being very feminine, Derek. I think that's powerful that you can show up that way, because when we micromanage, when we control, when we lead with anger or constantly criticizing, those are very kind of taking the masculine to very unhealthy places, that masculine energy. So you can be open and saying, I'm just going to let you run with this, so that I trust you. I'm creating a safe space. I know you're going to do good. And even if they don't, you go, you know what? Just try something else.
Yeah.
It's like if men can move into that role, because I think women do that really beautifully. I've women bosses, I've worked with women, and they do that naturally. They create that very safe space for men and women, but men don't. So if we can move to do what you just said, and more men can do that, I love that. That self-awareness of saying, how can I create this kind of safe, encouraging, uplifting space for who I'm working with.
And my purpose there was really just to say, give it a shot, because I have personal experience with it working out really well. It was more of a testimonial to what we're discussing here than patting myself on the back. But I mean, it's true. It's a fact.
Yes.
I mean, you can go to winthislisting.com and check out, look at the episodes, look at the teasers. I mean,
I'm going to pat you on the back though too.
That's great.
Look at the teasers, you'll see it. So I mean, I think that's a good takeaway for this discussion, which is just to sort of reevaluate this just a little bit.
Yeah.
If we can make these little micro shifts,
Beautiful.
and we can do them in multiple places, then I think we can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And as for women, I think an important takeaway is to be bold and to really have faith that our feminine power can be appreciated, and that we should be empowered to utilize that, however, in all the walks of life that we do. So, if you're a businesswoman, take those chances, make your voice heard. Check out Will's Million Smart Women movement. I think that it's really an incredible thing to be educating yourself about the types of power that we do have as women, and how to use it in a world where, it's not always seen or appreciated, and how to do it in a way that's not going to be, looked down upon, or too forceful or too masculine, or,
I think you're right.
Fantastic.
I think it's the millennial generation that'll ultimately get us over the hump. And I really do. I really do think that's
Bringing you over.
That's the one. Well, I'm right on the cusp. I'm like
He's always said that. I
like
keep telling you.
barely a millennial. Like just
Cusp is a millennial.
barely.
That's good. We'll give it to you.
Just barely. But I'm
Making him
super
more and
old
more
soul,
proud.
So it's like I don't know. Like you're on the border.
Since we've met, you've become more and more millennial. You
true.
said off the chain,
Instagram,
like right before. I
Snapchat,
mean, look at
love
it.
Facebook Living all over the
Facebook
place.
Living, like left and right. But it's true. I mean,
You started wearing glasses. I mean, like the beard. You didn't have a beard before.
I legitimately
What's going
can't
on?
see.
Like, what's
No,
next? What's next?
But I think it's true, because this is a very open-minded generation, and me personally, just knowing how I grew up and seeing a lot of things that I saw, I don't consider a lot of these things that people have issues with. Older generations have issues with, like built-in stuff that you were taught,
Right.
it was passed down to you, that you were conditioned to think or believe these certain things. And I don't have any of those things. It doesn't make any difference to me if the person is a man or a woman, or if they're black or white or whatever. It doesn't make any difference to me. The question, there's some more substance underneath that. Can they do the job? Are they doing a good job?
Right.
Could they be doing better? Are they coachable? Those are the questions I immediately go to ask. And I think that our generation has that going for it at a much grander scale than past generations have. And so you're right, probably that will, in 20 years,
Yeah.
this could get there, but it's going to take a lot of people making small adjustments, which is what we're hopefully
Sure.
Absolutely.
able to get everyone to do today, is
Yes.
make a small adjustment in your thinking on this. And I think if women do end up ruling the world, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
I think
things
we'll do fantastic.
I think things will be all right.
I can't wait.
All right, thank you guys so much for being here. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Tremendous stuff from both of you. That's it, man. We're out. Don't we already? Someone said, Ariel.
I love it.
All right, great stuff. Thank you guys.
Yeah.